And are you refreshed? Yes. Good. Now what? It's a lot of trouble in this room.
Is there contrast at the source?
Yes, but it would be indiscernible from your perspective. In other words, there's contrast in everything because there is choice in everything. But the contrast that source experiences would be so subtle from your perspective that you would not be able to discern it.
So, and when you speak about perfection, the perfection that can be attained or achieved, isn't that a state of non-contrast or non-variety?
It would be, but it does not exist.
It does not exist at any level.
Because if there could be such a level, then there would cease to be expansion. And we are all eternal. We can tell you want more, and we're going to give it to you here, because, you see, you all are kind enough, wise enough, evolved enough to explore the contrast that benefits the likes of that which you are calling source. In other words, you are exploring the starker contrast. It's such a nice relationship we all have. You said, I'll go forth into a time-space reality where there is variety, and I will come to new conclusions because I will live new experiences. And Source said, we will remain here in this, what you will deem pure positive energy environment, fixated on the desires that you are giving birth to and holding the frequency of them so steadily that if you tune yourself carefully and deliberately, you will be able to perceive that frequency and follow that path. So it's the best of all worlds, because we've talked, and we know you've heard, but it fits here so perfectly. The process for creation is 3 steps. Now we're calling it 4 steps, really. But the first step is exploring the variety which causes you to ask. Asking is the first step. And it's the first step for all of us. But you are doing the primary asking here, because you are exploring the starker contrast and coming to the newest conclusions of desire. Step 2 is the part that we predominantly play in it, because when you ask, that's where we go. We hold the frequency of that with no discernible vibrational variance. And as we hold the frequency of that, if you care about it, you can tune yourself to that frequency, and that's what we meant by keeping up with the desire, closing that gap. And now we are talking, so that's step 1, step 2, step 3. Now we are talking about a step 4 experience that you can live in your physical body, where, as some of those who have talked with us already today are already living, where you are so chronically practicing that vibration of alignment that when the contrast presents itself to you, it doesn't knock you off your frequency. In other words, you remain in alignment even though the contrast is apparent to you. And so let's make some statements that sort of bring that to you in a way that you can hold it longer. When you are able to maintain your balance amidst contrast, that means that you're solidly there. When contrast feels like choices rather than problems, when contrast feels like steps toward greater clarity, when contrast feels like information necessary to make even better decisions. Oh, that's what contrast is. Contrast is what's necessary to make even better decisions. Yes?
Yes.
So now where are we?
Okay, and you mentioned it. It was, but my question is then, what practices or attitude one best have to keep the highest possible alignment with Source?
This is going to sound odd to you, but this really is the way that we would approach it. We would make peace with contrast, because it's you're pushing against the contrast that holds you in the frequency of it longer than you need to be, rather than accepting it as the natural 1 step, 1, 2, 3, 4 steps. of the process. Just don't make such a mission out of the step oneing. Take your step one and feel the new desire. Step one is giving birth to desire. We've been saying that step one is asking, which is the same thing. But let's give it an even more special name. Step one is the birthing of desire. And Source stays right there with that. Yeah. We would make peace with contrast. Haven't you noticed that sometimes, even though contrast is unpleasant, once you get through it, you stand in a clearer place? And really, of all of the emotions, descriptive emotions, that could be offered about what it's like to be tuned in, tapped in, turned on, about what it's like to be at that frequency with Source. Oh, let's say it in an even better way. When you have accomplished, temporarily because it comes and goes, when you have accomplished that alignment with Source energy, the first manifestation that occurs is an emotion that feels really good. It's like that way of saying it. And that emotion that comes as the first manifestational evidence of that accomplishment of that alignment could be described in many ways: elation, passion, love, appreciation. But the emotion that you would call clarity is what we would be going for if we were standing in your physical shoes. Because in that clarity, there's conscious acknowledgement of that at oneness. So wouldn't you easily say that often contrasts that formerly felt rotten, that you thought you would have liked to have not experienced at all, did ultimately bring you clarity that you were glad to find? Come on, admit it.
Yes.
We know you experienced that. We're just saying if you would look for it more frequently and acknowledge it more often, and even say it would help you even in the middle of a contrasting experience. This is information that I'm glad to find because it lets me know what the content of my vibration has been. In other words, because so often we have to introduce into this conversation the subject that has confused our human beloveds for so long, and that's the subject of unconditional love. Because you hear about it in religious settings, you want to live unconditional love, and yet you're running around looking for conditions that will make you feel good, which is not an unconditional love, that's a conditional love. And we are not saying that it's not a wonderful thing to appreciate lovely things. But if your happiness is conditional on the condition, then we see why you would want the contrast to go away. But the contrast isn't going to go away, and the way you feel and your alignment is not conditional upon the condition. Wanting to feel good is the only thing that matters. And so, can you feel the difference between waking up, deliberately looking for general things that feel good, focusing on them long enough that law of attraction brings them to more momentum, and then the momentum being strong enough that you're inspired to behavior, into words, into experiences, into exposure, into co-creating that just feels wonderful, to conditions that really feel good. Do you follow that? So you started general, you stayed there, you maintained your frequency, and then the inspiration, then the manifestations began coming. So here's what we're saying to you. The conditions are coming in response to your vibration. And it's a very different living to know that the conditions are coming in response to your atmospheric mood, climate creating, as compared to running around the world trying to sort out conditions to find those that feel good so that you can have a good feeling response. Did we get there for you? Did you hear that? You've been wondering about this your whole life. You have certainly been wondering about it since you've been talking about deliberate creation. So let's say it again. We so want you to hear it. Conditional living is sifting through data, wanting to find conditions that will cause me to feel good. Deliberate creation is waking up in the morning and deliberately generating a mood, deliberately generating a vibration that accomplishes a mood, that after it accomplishes the mood, it then accomplishes ideas. Accomplishes and manifesting being the same word. Accomplishing the mood, which then accomplishes, which is present because I have accomplished a frequency. So I accomplished a frequency, a general one, which accomplished a mood, a general one. And then more manifestations begin flowing in, ideas, until eventually there are conditions that occur in response. As compared to sifting through the plethora of conditions, finding a big enough pile of them, controlling the bad piles with rules, laws, guns, and bombs, so that I can feel good because I have managed to carve out, and I'm protecting my conditions too. That's a hard way to go about it. And all you got to do is get in a happy mood.
Can I have a last question? Thank you. Does astrological configurations of oneself have a defining or fading factor as current astrology states?
Yes, in this sense. Certainly, everything that we're talking about is about creating. And creating is about thinking. And thinking is about setting a vibration in motion, which is a good way to use the word trajectory. And your trajectory for this life experience did not start the day you were born. There was a trajectory that you had set into motion. And the precise timing and placement of your birth, perfect in every case, no exceptions, to what you were intending, to the trajectory that you had intended from your non-physical, resistance-free perspective. Ooh, don't you love knowing that? So it's misunderstood, and so many astrologers are trying to make it more cut and dried than they really are able to do. Some are able to tune into the trajectory, which brings up another really good question. So my trajectory that was set into place, is it my job to find it and to fulfill it? And we say, if you're feeling good, you are. But your predominant intention was not to complete a trajectory that was set into motion prior to your birth. It was to explore life and continue to create the trajectory, because you are the creator of your reality, not a puppet on a string. Not even a puppet on a string with you at another level of your being the puppet master. You get to decide right here and now who you are. But when you find alignment with who you really are, that powerful but general perspective of well-being. That was good. Did you follow it?
Yes.
Enough for you?
Yes.
Really
Thank you
good.
very much.
Really good.